Commissioner, on the 6th of July, when I made this address before the South Africans, it was because I wanted to inform the public about the level of challenges that we're experiencing as a South African police service in relation to the work we do as the police, which involve criminality and the political interference on the work that we do as the police, which will also include corruption within the value chain of the justice system, which we are part of as law enforcement. That's why the presentation that is attached here will be used as a reference, which is marked. I'm not going to refer to all of them, but by and large, commissioners, that was to brief the nation to understand what challenges are we facing as the South African Police Service.
Are you the sole author of the content of that document, or do you have other people or persons that participate in the creation of that document and the information contained therein?
I must indicate, Commissioner, that this briefing which I made on the 6th of July, it is a product of the collective and collaborative efforts of various units within the South African Police Service. The majority of men and women in blue in this service who were responsible for, together with myself, in compiling this document. It is therefore a reflection of the common concerns that we share as colleagues in different ranks within the service, which made us to have a common desire for these problems to be resolved, and in order to enable these members of the service to be able to serve with honor and dignity.
You make what I consider to be an important point at paragraph 11 that I think you should share with the Commission, which would seem to speak to a risk in the absence of positive action. What is that risk? What is the fear and what is the risk?
Commissioner, on this paragraph level, it has been my aim that I want to demonstrate that the criminal justice system has been subject to a continuous threat, as well as sabotage, which has been with us over an extended period, to a point where we believe it is at real risk of a total collapse if nothing is done. Therefore, an urgent and effective interventions are required in order to avert this outcome. And I believe this Commission will stand to play a very important role in order to help us to prevent this total collapse of the justice system in our country.
Your statement in that part concludes with a personal message. Would you like to deliver it at paragraph 12?
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner. As we had appeared before the South Africans on the 6th of July, I must first thank the media in South Africa for affording us an opportunity to be able to share our challenges with the public, which then, as a result, it helped the State President to establish this commission following that press briefing, which we also appreciate, as this commission is going to help us to deal with the challenges that we are facing as we execute our duties. And lastly, I want to thank the general public for having received our message very well. And I'm sure what we're going to talk about is not necessarily everything that the public are experiencing out there in terms of the experience they have as they interact with the justice system, but it is mainly to address those that we were speaking about on the 6th of July.
Thank you. I would like to draw attention then to paragraphs 13 and 14, which set out the scope of your statement and the testimony you are about to give. Can you briefly speak to that scope of your evidence?
Commissioner, the main address that we put on this statement will focus in the main on what has been much talked about, which is the KwaZulu Natal political killings task team. We will want to address that first, and secondly, we will want to address the criminality, the political interference, as well as the corruption within the criminal justice system. It shall become evident that significant overlaps and intersection between the two broad topics, and a distinction between the two may not always be possible to draw. I will, however, address the issue of KwaZulu Natal political killings task team first, and separately before I delve into matters of the political interference, the corruption and criminality that we experience within our criminal justice system.
In the context then of the focus of your statement, the next chapter you deal with substructural overview and organogram. You set out a background to the establishment of the SAPS, the legislative framework that governs the SAPS. And I would like us to work through that part of your statement in brief. We don't have to read everything. So you start at paragraph 20 with the establishment of SAPS. Any aspect you'd like to highlight in that regard?
Yeah, well, Commissioner, in the main, as the general public will know, that Section 199 of the Constitution establishes all the security agencies that we have in the country, which include the South African Police Service, the Defence Force, as well as the intelligence. And all these services are structured and regulated in terms of national legislations, which in case of the South African Police Service, it will be the South African Police Service Act. And the SAPS members must always act in accordance with the Constitution and the law. And they must make sure that whatever they do does not advance the political interest of one party over the other. And ours is to make sure that we apply the fairness that the Constitution is directing us to do, to treat everyone equal before the law. And in any partisan manner or any interest that is shown by each member to the political party is prohibited by the law.
In the next few pages, you summarize the SAPS mandate in terms of the Constitution, in terms of the Act, and you make reference to the regulations. Now, insofar as the Constitution is concerned, what would you like to highlight for purposes of the Commission, insofar as the role players, as determined by Section 206, are concerned, the Minister, the National Commissioner, and the Provincial Commissioner?
Commissioner, in the main, will draw attention to Section 205 of the Constitution, which outlines what are the primary responsibility of the South African Police Service, which will include the prevention, combating, investigation of crime, protection of the property and the citizen of this republic or the inhabitants of the republic, which also includes the maintenance of public order and to uphold the law as the South African Police Service. That is what the Constitution tells us to do. But the same Constitution, under different sections, Section 206 of the Constitution outlines the responsibility of the Minister of Police, which is that of a policy development. The Constitution says the Minister will develop the policy in consultation with the provincial executive or provincial government. And their needs in different provinces must be taken into account when the Minister develops this policy. And the same Constitution gives powers to each province to monitor police conduct and the police performance. And that is done through the executive, as each province has an assigned individual which is responsible for overseeing the work that the police are doing. In the same Constitution, Commissioner, other than 206 that talks about the executive authorities at national level as well as provincial level in terms of the ministers and MECs. In some provinces, we have premiers that are overseeing that role, those that do not have MECs. But the Constitution under Section 207, it speaks about the appointment of a man or a woman to be the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, who is appointed by the President of the Republic. And this individual is given the responsibility to exercise control and to manage the South African Police Service. And it does that in accordance with the national policy that will have been developed by the minister, who is a cabinet member, and also under the direction of the very same cabinet member. The Section 207 further speaks about the appointment of provincial commissioners. And the provincial commissioners are appointed by the national commissioner. And the national commissioner does that in consultation with the executive in the province. And the responsibility of the provincial commissioners are outlined in the same constitution, which says that the provincial commissioners are responsible for policing in their respective provinces as prescribed by the legislation and are subject to powers of the national commissioner, the powers and control of the national commissioner of the South African Police Service. And in the Constitution, you will find, together with the Act that is referred to in the Constitution, which I spoke about earlier, that there are different acts that are developed. And one of the acts that is critical in the Constitution is the National Intelligence Act, National Strategic Intelligence Act, which is applicable to the South African Police Service as a captured, which regulates the functioning of our crime intelligence within the South African Police Service. I sum the Constitution establishes a single police service, and this concept creates a unified and standardized police service across the Republic under the leadership of the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service.
And you deal from page 21 with the establishment of the Political Killings Task Team. You indicated at the start of your testimony that the Political Killings Task Team is one of the key topics that you wish to address in the course of your testimony. You indicated that there are two in the main, but this would be a starting point. That starts at page 21. From paragraph 50 to paragraph 71, you deal with the establishment of the Political Killings Task Team. And I would like us to start the conversation from that point. So if you could narrate how the Political Killings Task Team came about, under what circumstances, when, and then we will subsequently look into its operations once established. Thank you. So if you could start on the establishment of the task team itself.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. We know that the province of KwaZulu Natal, historical, that has been a problematic province with regard to political violence, which dates back to the days before democratic South Africa. And that problem remained, although it had subsided prior the establishment of this team, but it started rising again, and we started seeing the leaders of our country being attacked in different levels, which then necessitated an intervention from the SAPS and the executive in terms of trying to mitigate the threat of attacks to our political leaders. And we know of the task team that was established back in 2018. But this political killing task team has its genesis in a previous task team that was established back in 2011. And this was done following the resurfacing of the killings, as I said, in the province of KwaZulu Natal, which was dominant at the time. And these killings in the province of KwaZulu Natal had led into the establishment of, or the provincial government in KwaZulu Natal, establishing a Morane Commission of Inquiry, which was established in 2016 by the Premier of the province, Premier Willis Mkhwanazi. And when this team started at the time, 2011, to look at specifically on cases that are involving the political leaders in the country, and with the aim of making sure that at least they can bring the perpetrators of these crimes to court.
General, you referred to intra-party killings. Do you want to please explain that?
Commissioner, in the main, in 2011, we saw the different political parties applying or employing different strategies in terms of the employment of their candidates for different political positions. A typical example, it has been a well-known practice in the country that for one to become a councillor, he has to go and campaign. And through that competition of campaigning, when people vote for you, become a councillor. So the same when you become a mayor, executive mayor, same rule applied. But when that strategy changed by the political parties deciding of who should be a councillor, who should be the mayor of the municipality, it became a conflict amongst the members of the same political party, where one person will have enjoyed the majority from the society, wanting to elevate that person to the position of being a leader of society in that particular locality. But the executive of the political party will take a decision that, regardless of popularity of that individual, but they choose another person to appoint as a leader. And the one who's popular, of course, will feel aggrieved, and the fights then started within the same political party. So that is basically what we're trying to communicate here, Commissioner.
Please continue.
Thank you so much. So the Morane Commission, which then was established, did confirm that these many assassinations were linked largely to corruption within local government, especially tenders. So you could imagine the one who is in position of authority as a political party leader or as a leader of society has some kind of influence over the issuing of tenders. And the business people that want to get tenders, they will always be friends with the one who's got an executive authority over that municipality or different provinces. And as a result, that corruption became the center of these incidents of threats, attempted murders, as well as murders. And the key recommendations that came from the Commission is the one that brought about the creation of the independent structures, which include having a designated focus from the South African Police Service in terms of investigation of these cases. And that's why then the South African Police Service responded by creating a team. But, Commissioner, that did not stop. We then saw more of those incidents happen up until 2018, when the President of the Republic decided that the efforts from law enforcement, being the South African Police Service alone, or the Minister of Police at the time, guiding or directing the interventions to try and mitigate this type of crime. It was then important from the present point of view that the police must not work alone. Therefore, the police must put the efforts together with other ministers within the cluster in order to be able to have a focused intervention in terms of trying to mitigate these incidents of political violence, if we were to call it. And as a result, in 2018, the President of the Republic appointed an interministerial committee, which we refer to as an IMC. I want to emphasize again, Commissioner, that the President of the Republic appointed an interministerial committee, which we refer to as an IMC. This committee constitutes of different ministers within the cluster. That will include the Minister of Police. It will include the Minister of State Security. It will include the Minister of Defense. It will include the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, and the different entities that are within the security cluster were also represented, including state security. So all these ministers, they form that which we refer to as an IMC. And the Minister of Police was appointed as a chairperson of the IMC. So it was the IMC that was mandated to relook at how best can the law enforcement, together with other agencies within the criminal justice system, can put a best possible solution to the incidents of political violence as it was experienced then.
You draw a distinction between what you say is a task team established at provincial level, and you distinguish that from the 11, which you term national priority intervention operations, of which the task team is one. What is the difference between the two categories?
The provincial and national?
No, between this national priority intervention operations, of which the task team is one, and the other task teams established within the various provinces.
In the main, largely, Commissioner, as I said, they are established in order to address a specific problem. What we see in the main is that those that are established at the provincial level don't have a budget. They work from the operational budget that is within the province. There's no specific allocation budget for those. But the ones that are established at the national level will form the priorities of addressing a specific problem in the country, which might be confined to a specific province. And therefore, the national level intervenes. And in majority of the time, or largely, there is funding that comes from the national level for these type of projects. And largely because these national projects will include police officers that are coming from the length and breadth of the country to go to a specific area where the problem exists. So if the problem is here in Gauteng, it might require the mobilization of resources from other provinces to come into Gauteng and work with the Gauteng. That's why the budget has to be made available for that purpose. But one in the provincial level, most likely going to work from home. So you just drive. Instead of going to one station, you go to another, you do the work, you go and sleep at home after that. So the one at provincial level does not necessarily have any financial implications.
Okay. In the next few paragraphs, you deal with aspects you have already covered, including the organogram within the task team and the coordinating structure. At page 29, that is the structure we had on the wall. That is the prevailing structure as we speak today.
That is correct. That is what the team is using currently.
You deal from page 30 with the fact that the public killings, political killings, task team, my apologies, operates in KwaZulu Natal, and at paragraph 83. So it operates at KwaZulu Natal and the Eastern Cape under General Khumalo's supervision and directed by the National Steering Committee, the IMC, and the President. Now, one, could you explain what you mean by the first statement that it operates in KwaZulu Natal and Eastern Cape, if you said its original mandate was to address the political killings within KwaZulu Natal?
General, before you respond, have you explained to us what the National Steering Committee is If you have, please forgive me, just repeat what that is.
Commissioner, thank you. If I invite you again to number 80 on my statement that shows the structure, that there is a steering committee that is reflected there. The steering committee, it's a coordination structure that looks at the performance of the team. And this one that is reflected here is at the provincial level. So which means the people who are not necessarily part of the day-to-day operation will come and receive presentation and assess the work that the team is doing and be able to guide if there's errors or challenges that the team is experiencing. So at the provincial level is reflected, we have that, as well as at national level, we had a similar thing, as I had indicated earlier on approvals, that will have these deputy national commissioners, including the head of DPCI, who will be signing on the project. So they, at the national level, will also form a committee that will look at that, because the report must land on the desk of the head of these institutions that are involved, be it the National Director of Public Prosecution and the National Commissioner, Commissioner of Correctional Services, the DG at SSA, Chief of the Defense, and all those entities that fall part of the cluster will receive that presentation before it's presented to the IMC. So that's basically what the steering committees are doing.
Now
Okay.
you may respond to the question that was asked by the evidence leader.
Thank you so much. Commissioner, the political killings task team is referred to all the time as a KwaZulu Natal political killings task team. It was established, as I said, by the National Commission of Province KwaZulu Natal and supported by the IMC. I think as a result of how they land in the Eastern Cape, it was a result of their good performance. You will see the success rate that this team have achieved, which then caused a problem for themselves, because then the state president had received complaining about incidents that had happened at Fort Hare University in the Eastern Cape, where there seems to have been challenges with regard to the investigation of those incidents that were happening at that university. And there was a direction that this team must also take responsibility on investigating those cases. That's how they landed in the Eastern Cape.
Sorry to interrupt again. At the end of paragraph 93, you actually do make the point about the success of the task team. The last sentence reads, the PKTT thus has a demonstrably unmatched success rate. What I'm interested in is this: what is the comparator? One can only meaningfully talk of unmatched success if there is a stated norm or comparator. What's that comparator?
Commissioner, I will not necessarily be able to give the figures at this present moment, but the detection rate as prescribed has a standard that is set, which is a performance target, that both the police investigation in terms of detection rate for the successful prosecution is measured. It appears in our books that we present, which is managed under detective services. And then also the success rate within the NPA themselves, they've got their own measurement target that they have as a department that they account for in terms of their annual performance plan that they throw and present to Parliament every year. So combine the two when you look at how the team performed, both on investigation and detection, successful prosecution, as well as you compare that with a normal investigation work that is done and prosecution that is done by the NPA in courts. And this one, detection and prosecution rate, success is higher. We can make those available to the Commissioner, so we're able to draw comparison.
Thank you, Chair.
I stopped you mid-sentence, General, so you may continue where you were.
Yeah, I realize
please.
that the commissioners have read this statement, so it's,
And in fact, because the chair jumped a couple of pages ahead to your
Apologies.
conclusion. So yes, I
Apologies,
agree with you.
Advocate
It's
Sello.
demonstrative of that. But then if you could take a step back.
yes.
The issue we're dealing with was that you indicate that this political killings task team was established to deal with political killings in KZN. At your paragraph 83, you then suggest that it currently operates in both KZN and the Eastern Cape. And I wanted to understand how that came about.
As I said, the task team was established and it accounts to the steering committees. So when the direction came that they must go to the Eastern Cape, it will have came through the normal channel, a project leader getting a directive from the steering committee that will have received this directive from the IMC. The IMC will have been requested by the President to see to it that a similar intervention is done in the Eastern Cape. So the IMC felt instead of creating something new, we already have something that looks to be working. They approached the National Commissioner or the National Steering Committee to say, can we move this thing over there and see how it can work? And that's why the National Commissioner and the Steering Committee agreed that they are going to direct a project leader to move over there and be able to assist in the Eastern Cape.
Okay. From paragraph 85, you deal with what you term successes of the PKTT. The next couple of pages reflect quite a lot of statistics. Not inviting you to go into the statistics themselves. I think you have persuaded the chair as to the successes of the PKTT. But the issue I would like you to highlight, and I'll take you like paragraph to paragraph. Starting then at paragraph 87, you indicate that from 2018 to date, the task team has been assigned responsibility for approximately 612 dockets. So that's over a span of more than 5 years, about 7 years. It is your description of the dockets set out in paragraph 87 I would like you to spend some time on. You indicate that this includes 333 dockets concerning politically related cases. I think by now we are clear what that could be, like the political killings in KZN. You then say there are 90 parallel cases. Could you explain to us the concept of parallel cases?
The parallel cases, Commissioner, will be cases that are of a high profile that might not necessarily meet the criteria that have been laid out on what the team must focus on. However, they might be of such a significant to the province, largely, for us to have a focused investigation on those cases. When the team started, we drew up the category of cases that the team must deal with. Largely were cases that were related to the political killings. But because we understood from the Moran Commission that the motive for these killings in the main were tenders. So, and the people that were affected in the main are the municipal managers, the CFOs of municipalities, and as well as different departments within the provincial government that end up being exposed in these matters because they are not awarding a tender to the place where some people are expecting them to send it to, which might be politically driven. And you'll find that while we are pursuing that, maybe the family relatives of such individuals, they become victims themselves. Typical example, if the CFO or the municipal manager relative is kidnapped or the family is attacked and they were thinking that they are taking the political leader or the CFO or municipal manager, but maybe they attack his family and he's not there at the time. We can see as a province that this looks like was directed at this person. And this person is protected by the work of this team. but the relative is not. But we can see this attack was aimed at getting to this person. So we take that docket and it becomes a parallel docket because it's not listed. That individual who's a victim is not listed as one of the priority people that we must focus on. But because of the sheer involvement of those people in the work that a specific person that we're supposed to be protecting is affected, then we take those and they become parallel.
Then can you distinguish that from what you call ad hoc? Because
Ad
another
hoc,
category is ad hoc cases.
Then the ad hoc cases will be some cases that are. No, I'm Commissioner. You'll pardon me. I mixed the two. The parallel cases, ad hoc cases, the one I'm talking about, ad hoc. That would be someone related to the person we're looking for, or we're supposed to protect. That is ad hoc. My bad. My apologies for that. Parallel cases, Commissioner, will be a case where a typical example, we're going to find a firearm that is used to murder or attack a high-profile individual who is a political figure or who's within the category of the cases that we're supposed to investigate. But when we take that firearm to forensic for analysis, you discover that that firearm is also linked to other matters that have got nothing to do with this case. Typical example could be a death of a school principal somewhere over something that is unrelated to what we're investigating. But because we now have a firearm and the likelihood is that the suspect that we have on this case and the weapon used is also undergoing another case elsewhere. So we want to bring that case into this team so that we are able to manage both of these cases. Otherwise, there might be conflict of court dates on both sides that will frustrate the work of the team. So we then bring those ad hoc cases that come on board. That is one angle of ad hoc. We have other ad hocs, Commissioner, as police officers go about your policing business where members will be moving from point A to point B and they see a suspicious vehicle. They will stop that vehicle and upon searching the car, they will find illicit goods inside, illegal firearms and so forth, and they effect arrest. So they carry that docket as well. Not necessarily it was part of their plan, but by default because they managed to deal with it. And sometimes they might get critical information that is urgent for them to attend to, and they attend to that, and it produces a docket. So those become part of ad hoc. That's why you see, even on the number, those ad hoc become many as compared to parallel. Parallel, as I said, they are more closer to the cases that are a priority of the team.
Mr. Mkhwanazi, we are back with your statement. When we parted before lunch, we had just finished the topic on the financing and funding of the political task team. We have made a note that you updating your statement at paragraph 98, it ended up with a statement to the effect that for the 2025-2026 financial year, final approval by the National Commissioner is awaited. Your testimony was that that approval has since been granted. We shall note that for the record. I invite us to then turn to the next topic that follows in your statement, starting at page 36. You headed involvement of the PKTT in the Gauteng counterintelligence operation. In the first few paragraphs of your statement, and if you could follow the orders you have set them out in your statement, you provide a general background to what you will eventually speak to, which is the actual involvement of the task team in that operation. So if you could start from paragraph 99 with the events of the 17th of April 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will start with the incident that happened, which I had presented before the South Africans on the 6th of July, was that a shooting incident that occurred, which led into the death of an employee of a Q-Tech engineering company that is based in Vereeniging in Gauteng, where a late Mr. Aman Swart was killed while he was in his vehicle outside the workplace. What we understand is that the subsequent to that shooting, which was involving the Transnet contract, it seems to have involved organized crime, and to some degree it had involved police corruption, which had posed the risk to the investigation team that was dealing with that incident. So I was advised that the organized crime unit which had taken over that investigation were operating under the leadership of the Deputy Provincial Commissioner in Gauteng, who is responsible for investigation, and that is Major General Khumalo. And this investigation became part of the wider investigation which took place subsequent to that incident in Gauteng, which it is called the Gauteng Counterintelligence Operation, GCI Ops. After the shooting incident that occurred in April 2024, 3 suspects were arrested as a result of that investigation. Amongst the 3 suspects, or the names of the 3 suspects, one of them at the time was a police officer, Michael Puletau. He was arrested together with 2 individuals, Musa Kekana as well as Tiago Floyd Deni Mabusela. So the charges that were leveled against them, they varied from murder, conspiracy, attempted murder, possession of suspected stolen property, as well as the possession of unlicensed firearm and ammunition. Through forensic analysis, those firearms were linked with multiple other murders other than the one that occurred of Mr. Swart. So when the forensic analyzed these firearms, it just strengthened the case against the accused and exposing these accused to a wider syndicate which had significant access to finance and at times, because there were a lot of money that were being paid for the jobs that they were doing. I'm told that when the SAPS had to appear in court on this arrest of the 3, they did everything possible to oppose bail of these suspects. But unfortunately, Mr. Puleta was later granted bail. And the reason he has cited at the time was his health condition. And this sparked grave concern amongst investigators as well as the prosecution team, because they started fearing their lives and the threat towards their lives started escalating. And those threats were coming verbally and in some instances physical intimidations. And at times I'm told that they were being followed as they were moving around. As I said, this suspect was a police officer at the time. So upon his release, he resigned from the service immediately. In August...
Apologies, General, you say upon his release, or is it upon his release on bail? On bail.
Upon his release on bail, when he had made an application citing health reasons, and he was released on bail, he resigned from the police. So his resignation was kept out as dishonorable from the service.
Thank you.
So as a result, in August Ms. Kutsie, who's a senior prosecutor, directed a correspondence to the head of the team that was investigating at the time, a team of organized crime, which was led by a Brigadier Khopabe, who was heading the organized crime in Gauteng province, as well as her commander, which is the Deputy Provincial Commissioner, Crime Detection, Major General Khumalo. And that correspondence was also addressed to the Provincial Commissioner of Gauteng, Lieutenant General Mtombeni. The same correspondence was addressed to the Deputy National Commissioner, Crime Detection, Lieutenant General Sibia, and the National Commissioner was a recipient of the same correspondence. So in this correspondence, Ms. Kutsie, who is a senior public prosecutor, formally expressed the threats being faced by the investigating team, by those that are accused of the crime of murder of Mr. Swart, together with the associates that are involved. And the advocate requested an urgent protection for 2 investigators that are part of the investigation team.
Before you proceed, you reference a letter there which you have annexed as MK8. Can we perhaps, as you go through that part of the testimony, turn to the actual annexure? MK8 chair starts at page 181 of file 2. And perhaps in addressing the concerns raised by Mrs. Kutsie, it might be appropriate to read some aspects of the letter. She has itemized the issues, and I would like to refer you specifically to some to buttress the evidence you just given. Do you have the letter before you?
Yes, Commissioner, I have the letter.
If you could start from paragraph 4 to 6 of Mrs. Kutsie's letter. And read that into the record, sorry.
Okay, Commissioner, on this letter from the Ms. Kutsie, the prosecutor, paragraph 4 reads, I quote, investigations have also revealed that the assassination is directly linked to whistleblowing to the hotline of Transnet, which involved millions of rands of corrupt activities. Paragraph 5, the investigation also revealed that the firearms used during commission of the assassination and found in their positions are linked to multiple assassinations and serious violent crime scenes. Paragraph 6 reads that the cell phones linkage investigation have revealed high-profile organized crime and crime scene planning. End quote.
And these are some of the concerns that Mrs. Kutsie raised. If I refer you to the next page of the same letter, that speaks to the bail application that was granted in respect of former police officer, Mr. Tau.
Sorry, you will have
Yes.
to repeat that
Yes, Chair.
at a later stage. General, also read paragraph 3 into the record, please.
Thanks, Commissioner. Paragraph 3 of this letter reads as follows. The investigation has proven that all 3 accused are involved in a serious organized crime syndicate, of which almost R1 million was offered for the assassination in this regard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for pointing it out. It's an important aspect. It's one that the next witnesses in particular will concentrate on, and we appreciate that it be brought to the fore. Getting back to the issue then, General, at page 183, item 10. Item 10 concerns the bail application that you referenced. Let me start here. It's correct that that was the bail application in which Mr. Officer Dau was successful. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It was the same bail application. Was it the same bail application in respect of the other two accused in that matter? Would you know?
Because I was not part of it, I was reading from the letter.
Okay.
Yes.
Now then, just paragraph 10 seems to reflect concerns regarding how the magistrate dealt with that application. So if I may request you to read that into the record.
The entire paragraph 10 reads as follows. As a letter from Ms. Kutse, the Senior Prosecutor, Regional Court, Vereeniging. The magistrate, for some bizarre and unexplainable reason, decided to grant Tau bail of 10,000 rand and place him under house arrest. The reality of the situation is that there is nobody who can watch over him 24/7 to ensure that he does in fact comply with the conditions. It is actually unenforceable. The prosecution has already spoken to the DPP to appeal the decision of the magistrate, and we just await the typed court recordings of the bail application to be present to the DPP to file the appeal.
And paragraph 11 and 13 then of the same letter on the same page specifically address the issues regarding Officer Tau. So if you could just proceed to read those two.
Paragraph 11 reads, the investigation has revealed that Tau is one of the main organizers behind these organized crime syndicates. His release on bail has intensified the danger of the safety of the investigation team, especially Mbele and Sithole, who are the people who made statements in the case, and they were the well-known faces who attended every court session. Mbele has been identified as the investigating officer, as she has presented detailed sworn statement to oppose the first and the second bail application. During the first few court sessions, the investigation team was actually followed from the court building, and many threats have been made inside the courtroom by the family and friends, and threats have been received via informers and even from the high-ranking police officer in the Val area, in the Val Rand area. Paragraph 13 reads, Tau clearly has a very large support system, and large amount of money are spent to obtain the best and most expensive advocates. The money is clearly coming from the syndicate, as all three accused are currently unemployed.
And lastly then, at paragraphs 14 and 15, Mrs. Kutse addresses the question of how the investigations have been conducted, and lastly, the state. Apologies, I'm not on record, I'll have to start again. I request you to then turn to paragraphs 14 and 15, and the first speaks to Mrs. Kutse's view on how the case is progressing and it's been conducted, and 15 speaks to the danger that is now confronted, that now confronts the detectives.
14, Commissioner, reads as follows. The case is brilliantly investigated, and the accused are 100% connected to all the charges against them. They obviously face long terms of imprisonment as well as defined life sentence for the assassination. Number 15 reads, from the above mentioned, it is clear that the lives of the investigating officers are currently in grave danger, as well as the safety of police dockets.
And I see at 16, final paragraph, it's a direct now request to the addressees in that letter.
The specific address request that is on this letter, Commissioner, on paragraph 16 reads, you are requested to urgently arrange for the safeguarding of especially Mbele and Sithole. There is a real danger that their lives are in extreme danger, as these organized criminals will do everything in their ability to try and destroy the evidence against them and or to seriously derail the trial. It has just now become so much easier with Tao having unlimited access to technology and his syndicate's friends and family.
Thank you. From paragraph 105 of your statement, then at page 36, you then deal with what transpired after receipt of this letter, particularly from General Khumalo's perspective, if you could pick it up from there.
Commissioner, I had mentioned that General Khumalo, who was the leader or was a project manager of the political task team in KZN, had been appointed as a divisional commissioner of crime intelligence. Through the formal SAPS channels, the request that was provided to the head of investigation in the province, which is also a Major General Khumalo, that Khumalo requested crime intelligence, which fell under a Major General Lekalakala in Gauteng, who is responsible for crime intelligence in Gauteng, was requested to conduct the threat assessment as a result of this letter. And the threat assessment was then assigned to Colonel Ntuli, who works under crime intelligence. Colonel Ntuli's findings were that the risk was high and they recommended 24-hour protection. In addition to what Colonel Ntuli requested was that Lieutenant General Khumalo need to be informed. And after General Khumalo, as the head of crime intelligence, who was responsible for this threat assessment, after he was informed, the case, this resulted into the case being moved to the national office, and therefore the counterintelligence had to be involved, which then resulted into the case within counterintelligence of crime intelligence being registered to run parallel to this case of Vereeniging. So Lieutenant General Khumalo, as the head of crime intelligence, after being briefed about this threat, he then tasked counterintelligence to register a case so they can run an investigation parallel to what was sitting in court already in Vereeniging.
Then your paragraph 106, you basically summarize what you have read into the record from Ms. Kotsie's letter. And at paragraph 107, you summarize the impact of the claims by Ms. Kotsie in her letter. And if you could take the commission through that.
Given the apparent association of the SAPS officials of all ranks with persons who are subject of investigation, the threat made against investigators and allegations that were leveled against the magistrate of bribery, established links to members of the cartel that were under investigation, a growing concern of infiltration of police, and the reduction of the investigation team, which at the time there were 5 members, and they were reduced to 2.
May I interrupt you, and I do apologize. A bit of a misstep. I skipped paragraph 106, which actually reflects information you subsequently obtained over and above what Mrs. Kotsie complained of. And you indicate that through the investigative efforts involving now counterintelligence, you came to learn of other information. So if I can ask that we take a step back to paragraph 106. My mistake, I apologize.
Yes, Commissioner, in this paragraph I was trying to indicate which I in time came to learn that through the investigation that the challenges, various challenges were experienced by the investigation team, which will include the deliberate omission of crucial information which the detectives were expecting to come from forensic services. Forensic services is within the police, who are charged with the responsibility of assisting the investigators with analysis of those firearms that were found. So these investigators of this organized crime team, they started experiencing the omission of some critical information that the forensic service is supposed to be providing to them. And not only that, these investigators will start interacting, will be invited to some meetings by senior officials in the South African Police Service, who then started engaging on the case that these members were investigating. And amongst those engagement they started having with senior officers within the South African Police Service, I must indicate that those engagements were not necessarily largely in Gauteng province, as these members were working under Gauteng province, but they were invited by senior officers at the head office of detective services. At times there would be, there were monies, bribes that were offered to them, and not to oppose bail in some cases that involved Dow, especially in the main. And so the detectives, in the course of the investigation, they felt threatened as these engagements that were happening with the senior officers seems to indicate that there is a high level of connection between the accused or the suspect and senior officials within the police at the head office in the main within detective environment. Moreover, during the period of the incarceration and while on bail, the accused, who is a former police officer, a former detective, Michael Puletau, had made threats against the very same investigation team.
Before
Yes, Chair.
the general proceeds, Advocate Sillo, as you are aware, the ordinary rules of evidence applicable in court proceedings do not apply to this commission.
Indeed, Chair.
In terms of the commission's regulations. But I would imagine that that notwithstanding, the probative value of the evidence may be negatively impacted. A lot of the evidence in this context is hearsay. Must we assume that down the line it will be corroborated?
In fact, that answer is part answered by the next paragraph, which is what I jumped to. So if I can permit him to conclude, he will then speak of his source of the information, and then I can address the question of the availability of the source.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So then, General, that leads us into paragraph 107. So if you could summarize that paragraph 107, and you, in that narrative, disclose your source of information, of the information you just set out before the commissioners.
Commissioner, as I said earlier, that Lieutenant General Khumalo was the Divisional Commissioner of Crime Intelligence. Major General Iqalile was the head of intelligence, or is the head of intelligence in Gauteng province. Colonel Ntuli worked under Iqalile. So Ntuli conducted threat assessment, and subsequent to that, Lieutenant General Khumalo at the division is informed. General Khumalo established an investigation, a registered investigation under counterintelligence, which runs parallel to this, in order to establish this threat, to try and investigate it further. But when these threats were presented to him towards these two detectives that were remaining in the team, he then felt that it is important for a special intervention to be made in order to protect these two investigators. So it is for that reason that General Khumalo felt that he needs to request support from law enforcement who falls outside Gauteng province in order to make sure that the work of these two detectives is protected parallel to the work that he already started from counterintelligence.
And then if you could take it through to paragraph 108, then I will get back to the chairperson's question.
Yeah. Commissioner, the assistant that was required by General Khumalo was of a highly specialized team that was to be deployed in Gauteng to assist in order to ensure that the investigation advanced swiftly. I can indicate, as I said earlier, that Lieutenant General Khumalo requested that a team of members from KwaZulu Natal Political Killings Task Team be seconded to his investigation team, which was a Gauteng counterintelligence operations, in order to assist with the investigation. So he was specific as he was asking when he contacted me over the phone. In that request, when he was discussing with me, he ought to have explained the reason behind this. Counterintelligence is more of a covert operation. So it is the work that ordinarily we don't account to in an open portfolio committee in the police, but through the Joint Standing Committee, that's how they account. So he gave me the explanation that will justify why he needs this specialization to come and assist.
If I may then refer the chairperson, at paragraph 107 read with 108, those two paragraphs speak to an engagement and a direct request by Lieutenant General Khumalo to General Mkhwanazi regarding assistance. Thank you, Chair. And having pointed that out, if you could just skip to paragraph 156 and 157. And in the context of where the witness started describing the nature of his testimony and perhaps evidence that would be available to the Commission. 156, he makes the point that the bulk of the information that informs the work of the Commission relies on ongoing investigations, and as such cannot be disclosed publicly, as this would adversely affect these investigations. Having pointed that out, however, at 157, he gives assurance to the Commission that full disclosure of all relevant facts will be made at subsequent in-camera hearings. So to your question, there will be corroboration. It would just be a question of the extent to which that would be held in public or in camera. Because of the possibility of some of it being in camera, I'm not in a position to say as to which witness will be available for that session. Yes.
General Mkhwanazi?
Yes.
What you speak to in paragraph 106, what you're detailing there, is this information that you received in the course of formal engagements with whoever the sources are, or it's informal? I just want to know where do we place it?
Commissioner, when I raised the issue of the engagement that I had with Lieutenant General Khumalo, as is outlined on paragraph 108, where he called me and asking for assistance, he then explained what led into him asking. Hence, I bring those.
Thank you.
On 106.
Thank you, Chair. You spoke of two detectives in paragraph 107, but I think you overlooked an important aspect regarding the two detectives. Would you like to highlight that?
I must indicate that, Commissioner, there were 5 altogether. And what made this threat to be high was because there was a reduction of the number of investigators into that case of Vereeniging from 5 to 2. Well, of course, we don't know the reasons as to what led into that. So part of the threat was that the team that was busy with this investigation felt that they can protect themselves because there's quite a lot of them, but suddenly they are reduced to 2. And that made them feel more vulnerable. And as a result, and in part, the death threats were made on them. And there was also this growing concern about infiltration of the police, which might have led into the reduction of these number of detectives that they deployed.
Let's turn then to the request made to you by Lieutenant General Khumalo. Could you give a brief description of the nature of the request?
Commissioner, Lieutenant General Khumalo, if you remember, if you recall, I mentioned earlier that he has been with the political killings task team from inception in 2018. So he understands the methodology of operations that we are running within the political task team and different disciplines and expertise that are sitting there. The Commissioner made a reference to paragraph 93 about the achievement of the team, which has been reflected on the successes that they've made over time. So he was well aware that if anyone that is going to be able to have the 2 detectives from Gauteng, they better come from that team because it's well equipped and he understands how they operate. So that's why he approached me and he asked me if I can release some of these investigators to come to Gauteng so they can assist.
And how many did he request and for what purpose?
He requested 10 of them, and they had specific purpose that they were going to, specific roles they were going to play. Amongst the 10 will include a commander that was going to be in charge of the team, the analyst that were going to assist the team, the investigators, including the digital forensic investigators, ballistic analysts, crime scene experts, as well as a designated firearm officer and cell phone data analysis. These are all the disciplines that he was specific on, considering that there were cell phones and there were firearms that were involved in this investigation, and he needed to have all these people that will assist with the investigation.
General, the secondment of the 10 members of the task team, what became of it? Is it still in place? Are they still seconded?
Commissioner, the members are still on the ground. The operation is still ongoing. The very same Gauteng counterintelligence operation is the one that led to the arrest of Mr. Molefe again. It's the one that led into the arrest of Mr. Nhlanhla. It's a team that today, as we sit here, has been part of the opposing of the bail of Mr. Nhlanhla, which was denied by court today.
Thank you, Commissioner. So now, on our timeline, we've come up to the 6th of December 2024 with the arrest of Mr. Molefe and the search and seizure warrant being executed on Mr. Nhlanhla and questioning both of them regarding the kidnapping of one Mr. Jerry Bushokha. We go over live at page 43 of your statement, and that the topic there is headed the disestablishment of the PKTT. And your first paragraph there precedes with the wording on or about the 2nd of January 2025. Before you address yourself to that, the last date we had was the 6th of December that you speak of. The next is the 2nd of January. At that time, did anything of importance arise or occur that you'd like to bring to the chair's attention? Not what you subsequently learned had happened, but any other issue you would like to address.
Commissioners, the 2nd of January 2021, I cannot recall the exact time, I received,
No, not 2021.
2nd of January 2025, beg your
Yes.
pardon. I received a WhatsApp message from a friend who sent me what looks like a letter that was signed by the Minister of Police disestablishing the political killings task team.
You say in that paragraph that you had not received formal communication in this regard.
That is true, Commissioner. I had not received any communication from anyone with regard to the disestablishment of the team.
So you established on the 2nd of something that had transpired involving the task team before the 2nd, but you did not do so formally. You learned through a friend, so you say.
That is correct, Commissioner. I learned through a WhatsApp message with a copy of the letter that was sent by a friend.
What were the implications? What was your understanding of the implications of the letter that you received? What is the notion of the disestablishment of the task team, and what are the implications thereof?
Well, the implications were going to be severe, Commissioner, because this is a team that was formed in 2018, where the executive or the head of the executive, which is the president of the country, was involved. A group of ministers, which we refer to as the interministerial committee, were overseeing the work of this team. Different steering committees that were charged with the responsibility to oversee the work of the team, as well as, more importantly, the budget, the financial cost that was given to the team. But most critical, Commissioners, are the investigations that some of them were already in court and some of them were underway, and the clients, which is the community out there, the victims of crime, the families of the victims of crime that needed closure with regard to the work that the team was doing, were going to be affected by this letter. That's why I was surprised, because getting it from a private person who is not involved in police operations was a surprise.
And
Before, I'm sorry.
Yes, Chair.
Before you go on, did the minister have the power to disband the PKTT? If he did, where did the power derive from?
Commissioner, when I started earlier, I had outlined, invited the commissioners to read the sections of the Constitution of the Republic on the role of the minister or the member of cabinet, which is the Minister of Police.
I remember the main thing you stated was that the minister creates or stipulates the policy. That's the main thing I heard. So that's why I'm now asking the question, because
Yes.
I don't think disbanding the PKTT would be something relating to policy.
No, definitely, that is the only authority that the Minister of Police has in terms of policy and direction, but not on operational matters. That's what it's another implication of the letter as it was signed by the Minister talking to the operational works of the police.
I may be going ahead of where you and Advocate Sello SC are, but I'm interested to know why there would then have been compliance with the instruction to disband if, as you say, this did not fall within the remit of the minister.
Commissioner, I had indicated when I presented since this morning that the team was funded and the finance was running up until the end of the financial year, which is the 30th of March 2025. So the letter comes in between. that. I've indicated the success rate of the team and the fact that there were still cases that were in court. And a matter of fact, as the Interministerial Committee continuously receiving reports, I think the last report will have been given to them in September of 2023, prior to the national elections. That was the last time that the executive interacted with the team. So the letter coming up on the 2nd of January, written in this fashion, it created a bit of a problem for me because I did not understand the background where it comes from. But I guess as we go through with the investigation, we will be able to express some of the challenges that we experience as a result of that letter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps, and then to just close up that point, you have attached the letter itself to your statement. You make reference to that at paragraph 128 at page 44. It is annexure MK9, and it starts at page 184 of file 2. So why don't we go to the letter and in concluding perhaps your answer to the Chair. Looking at the letter, if we go to the 2nd page, I see it is signed by the Minister of Police, Mr. Mkhunu. It's dated the 31st of December 2024. Is that the letter that you say you received on the 2nd through a friend, on WhatsApp communication?
That is correct.
Okay. Looking at that letter, I see it covers 3 major issues. The first, and they're numbered. First relates to the filling of posts in the intelligence division. Is that an aspect that is relevant to your operations, both as a political killings task team or as the provincial commissioner? Would that fall within your remit? Item 1.
The filling of vacancies of crime intelligence.
Yes.
It is a responsibility of the divisional commissioner, who is Lieutenant General Khumalo, together with the National Commission. However, the crime intelligence in each province ought to have the leader,
yes,
which provides services to the province. So therefore, in that, it will affect me as a provincial commissioner.
Now, based on this letter, were you directly impacted by the instruction to suspend the filling of posts within the intelligence division in KZN specifically? Were you directly impacted? By you, I mean the province and you.
Yes, commissioners, the impact of this is severe. We already have been trying to put some reforms within crime intelligence in order to respond to the growing crime levels that we're experiencing in the country. You'll recall, Commissioner, in 2021, July unrest, and subsequent to that, the Human Rights Commission that was that conducted hearing. The level of intelligence or the poor performance of intelligence was highlighted during the Human Rights Commission, and the recommendation was that we need to improve in this regard. So therefore, for us not to fill up vacancies that are critical within the space was going to have an impact in our efforts to fight crime and maintaining public order in the province of KwaZulu Natal.
The next item is under 2. It's headed ports of entry. My reading of that part of the letter is that the minister was calling for a report in regard to border management. Do you read it the same?
That is correct.
Okay. So, and the 3rd then is headed political killings task team. And perhaps it's only appropriate that you read what the minister's directive as reflected therein into the record, and that would part answer, I believe, the question posed by the Chair.
The letter is on this paragraph, if I may quote, political killings task team. In 2019, a directive was made to the National Commissioner of Police following the Morane Commission report, even though not flowing directly from such, that an interministerial task force be established. The key mandate was to stop, investigate, resolved, unresolved matters of politicians in the country, especially in KwaZulu Natal. My observation in this regard, as indicated above, is that further existence of this team is no longer required, nor is it adding any value to policing in South Africa. I therefore direct that the political killings task team be disestablished immediately. Further, that a preliminary report in this regard be submitted to the Minister by the 20th of January 2025. The final and closing report must be submitted to the Ministry's Management Executive Committee meeting late January 2025, the date of which will be communicated as soon as possible. Yours sincerely, Minister of Police, Mr. E.S. Mkhwanazi, MP.
Let me ask this direct question, General. Is this a policy or a policing issue, and why?
Commissioner, as in my opinion, views and experience I have in the police of over 30 years, this is a letter that is operational, not policy. It talks to the operational work of the police, of the SAPS, mainly so because this is one team that has been successful out of the 11 teams that are running at national level. But it is the only team that receives this type of letter. So I felt that this is an operational thing, notwithstanding the fact that there are other background references in terms of the establishment of this team that were omitted, perhaps were not known to the Minister, the reason of which I think he is in a better position to explain.
Thank you, Chair. I know further on in your statement you deal with these issues, but I would like to invite you to give a preliminary response to the statement made by the Minister in the letter. And I quote, "My observation in this regard, as indicated above, is that further existence of this team is no longer required, nor is it adding any value to policing in South Africa." Do you have any comment to that statement?
Commissioner, I disagree with the assessment of the Minister in this regard. I have displayed earlier today, also in the statement, previous pages, the work that the team have done, the success rate, the performance that influence the extra work to be given to the team, which will include the work in the Eastern Cape as well as traditional leadership. So for a minister to reach this conclusion, worse because the minister has not received a formal briefing on the work that this team is doing. So to me, it was a wrong conclusion that the minister has reached, which is why it became a matter of concern.
I think somewhere in your statement, but as part of that same theme, you say that the disbandment would have resulted in all dockers having to be sent to different corners within KwaZulu Natal to be handled by individual investigators who no longer have the benefit of this integrated approach to, one, investigating and also two, to prosecution, which, according to your statement, would have been disadvantageous to the process.
That is correct, Commissioner. I can agree with you more. The Minister's conclusion of saying that the team does not any value in policing in South Africa was misplaced. It is my belief that perhaps, as I had said in the public, in the very same month of January, that someone influenced the minister to do this.
Thank you. General, you say that at the time of this letter, the minister had not received a formal briefing on the work of the task team. You say formal. Had he received any briefing at all from you in particular?
Commissioner, when the minister arrived, I cannot remember the date when he was appointed. He had invited the police management to the South African Police Service Academy at Pretoria West, where presentations were given to the minister. But that was strategic presentation that were given to the minister, not specifics on operational matters. I had an opportunity also to stand, take a podium there and present to the minister. One of the remarks I made in my presentation to him was to invite him to visit KZN so that he get to experience some of the operational challenges that we have as a province, especially because he's a resident of the very same province. So it was in a part of my presentation when I was talking to him. So, but in a formal briefing, as it was done during the IMC of the previous administration, there was never such a briefing. There was never such an opportunity presented for a formal briefing to be made to outline in details of what the team has achieved up until the time when he wrote this letter. Actually, up to date, he has never had that platform.
And perhaps if I may just follow up on that. Earlier in the morning, you, in discussion of the IMC, you stated that the Minister of Police is the chair of that committee. Is that correct?
That is correct. Is the chair of the committee.
Do you know who calls for the meetings of that committee?
Although I will not necessarily know between the ministries how they communicate, but from the police, we'll always get correspondence coming from the Minister of Police as a chairperson convening such a briefing session. So that will go via the National Commissioner's Office and it will be brought to us so that we prepare for that briefing and the date when the briefing is going to take place.
Since the Minister Mkhunu assumed office, I think it was May 2024, have you received such an invitation?
We have never received an invitation at all.
Getting back to your statement then from paragraph 126. From 126, you engage with the steps you took upon learning of the minister's decision on the 2nd of December, albeit through a friend. Can we talk about the immediate steps you took upon learning of the minister's decision? Where we started paragraph 126 of your statement.
Yes.
Ms. Selo, don't you mean paragraph 123?
I do mean paragraph 123 indeed. Thank you, Commissioner. my page flipped. It's marked for another purpose. It is 123. I apologize, General, for the confusion. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, Commissioner. Perhaps maybe I must pause to mention something that perhaps I did not include on my statement, that upon receipt of this WhatsApp message with a letter, the first point of contact was to engage the Chief of Staff at the Minister's Office, Mr. Nkabinde. He's a well-known individual to me. I personally called him, understanding that there can never be any letter signed by the minister that does not pass his desk, or at least pass his hand. So I asked about it, whether is he aware, or maybe it's just a fake letter that is created by someone and is circulating. So I asked him if he's aware of such a letter that is disestablishing the team. And his response was yes, he is aware of the letter. In actual fact, his words were, the letter has been going back and forth. Someone crafting it, sending it to the minister, has been corrected. Eventually, it was put under pressure to dispatch it to the Office of the National Commissioner. So the letter, as I saw it, it's a correct letter that was signed by the Minister of Police. So from the because it was unofficial when I was talking to him when he gave me the response. I then felt at the time what had confused me the most, Commissioner, is because I will expect, obviously, the letters addressed to the National Commissioner, that the National Commissioner will communicate with me about this. I took an opportunity to call him. The National Commissioner must indicate, Commissioner, that he was on leave at the time when I received this letter, when I saw this letter. He was on vacation leave. I cannot remember exact date. It could have been a Tuesday, but it was during the week when this letter came out. A weekend prior to that, which was a Saturday, the National Commissioner and the Minister of Police had visited KwaZulu Natal province to come and support us as we were mourning the death of one of our colleagues. So there was a funeral that took place at the area of Mpangeni in KwaZulu Natal. It's a Saturday. And when the funeral ended, the minister, in his own words, was that he's going to rest in the province, he's going to be around the province, so I must be aware of that. And the National Commissioner was going to be starting his leave on Monday, so we all went separate ways. National Commissioner traveled to Pretoria that Saturday evening, and the minister will have gone to his residence in KwaZulu Natal. It's a Saturday. Sunday goes by, the Monday, I cannot remember the date, but 2 or 3 days later, the letter surfaced. So the National Commissioner has just taken leave. So that's what troubled me, because I find it odd that you cannot have a National Commissioner or the Minister writing a letter to the National Commissioner that has got such content and these allegations if the Minister had not discussed this with the National Commissioner somewhere before. Perhaps it's just formalizing the communication that he had had with the National Commissioner. That's why then I took a decision to contact the National Commissioner to try and establish from him whether is he aware about this letter, has he been told about this establishment. And the National Commissioner's response was that he is on leave, which his leave is going to end on the 14th of January, and he hasn't had an opportunity to consider the content of the letter. But he had nothing to do with the disbandment of this political killings task team. And he also informed me that the Minister of Police has never sought his advice before taking this decision. So I also advised him that I also had not been engaged about the decision of the Minister. So that is the first engagement I had with the National Commissioner as he was on leave.
He was still on leave at the time you had that engagement?
That is correct.
Before then we discuss what you did next, can I go back to an issue you raised, and you said it's not part of your statement, and that relates to your contact with the Chief of Staff in the Minister's office. And if I recall correctly, you said the Chief of Staff informed you that the letter was going to and fro. I think those are the words you used. Do you recall that?
That's correct.
What do you know between who that letter was going to and fro?
Commissioners, I did not ask him who are these back and forth, but my conclusion was that the drafters of the letter were on the other side of the country.
Country, you said?
The other side of the country, because the minister was in KwaZulu Natal.
Okay.
So the drafters would have been elsewhere, not together with the minister. And the correspondence will have gone to the Chief of Staff, who then directed to the minister. And perhaps the minister will not be happy with some content and will bring it back to the Chief of Staff, and the Chief of Staff will send it to the drafters. That's why the back and forth statement come from. That is my assumption. Okay. And eventually, after the signature was placed on the document, then the Chief of Staff was, on his own words, pressured to make sure that the National Commissioner's Office receives and acknowledges the receipt on the letter on the day. So he never told me who pressured him to do that. So I guess the investigation will be able to discover where did the letter originate from before the minister signs it.
The pressure was on the Chief of Staff.
That is correct, Commissioner, according to his own words.
Over what period, if you know, was the minister in KZN? I know from the time of the funeral. When was the funeral? And do you know up to what point?
I do not know the duration that the minister was in KZN for, but actually I don't even know when he arrived in KZN, but the funeral was on the Saturday, which was the last Saturday of December. The funeral was on that Saturday in KwaZulu Natal, and on the 2nd is when this letter was signed. And when we separated on the day of the funeral, the minister told me that he's going to be in the province. So whether he had left the province maybe between the funeral day and the date of the letter, I do not know.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair. So the National Commissioner was not able to shed any better light on the letter because he says he wasn't aware of it. He was not engaged before it was crafted and dispatched, and he didn't know anything about it. That's what you. What then did you do next?
Commissioners, I made a suggestion to the National Commissioner that he must speak to the minister in order to be able to establish the factors that made the minister to consider arriving in this conclusion and a drastic decision to disestablish the team. Because in my views, it was an irrational and irregular. The decision was going to have a serious impact, as I said, in terms of the investigation of crime and those cases that were before the team. And also in the main, because I, as per the Constitution, given the responsibility to make sure that policing is done in the province of KwaZulu Natal, and the population of over 12.5 million, we're going to look at me as having failed them. So the consequence of a sudden stop of investigation was going to impact on us as the South African Police Service in the province of KwaZulu Natal, and myself as a person responsible for the work that needed to be done.
And what, do you know whether or not the National Commissioner acted on your request to engage the minister and establish the issues that you've highlighted?
Well, I did not hear from the National Commission after that, Commissioners, as the time were progressing. I did not, he never really came back to me to tell me what is the next course of action, but it continuously signs off the extension of the deployment of the team in the province, regardless of the letter.
And you indicate that you took some resolutions following the National Commissioner's failure to report back to you on any contact and conversation he may have had with the minister. What were those steps you took?
Part of the, if I hear the question correct, Commissioner, on what I did after speaking to the National Commissioner, not able to come back to me.
Yes.
I said earlier I had engagement with the Chief of Staff right at the beginning because he's a person I knew very well. And I even requested the Chief of Staff that he must try and arrange a meeting with the minister so that we can be able to tell the minister about the consequence of the letter that he has written. And after engaging with the National Commissioner, I did not leave it there. I continuously tried different individuals outside the structure of government, people that I thought the minister might listen to. I tried to engage them, to try and reach out to the minister so that we can talk about this. But that did not give me any success. I then took a decision to engage the minister directly in the form of a WhatsApp that I sent him. He acknowledged that, and he was to set up a meeting, but to date, that meeting never materialized.
General, you seem to have skipped paragraph 126 as another step that you took. Do you want to speak to that?
That is correct, Commissioner. In my effort to try and make sure that we get to engage with the minister about this matter, part of my request to the National Commissioner was that if he's not able to get an audience with the minister to talk about this, the least he must do is to approach the head of state, the president, because he accounts to the president, and the president knows about the establishment of this team and the work that the team is doing over these years. So he must be informed about what the minister has done, and I wanted the National Committee to establish whether is the president aware of the decision of the minister, is he supporting this decision of the minister? Because as a provincial commissioner, I can't go directly to the president, so I needed to engage my boss, which is the national commissioner, to reach out to his boss, the president, because, of course, the executive authority, the minister, taking a decision that seems to be contrary to what we are doing as the police. I also wanted to indicate, I reminded the National Commissioner that the work of this team was as a result of the interministerial committee. This is not a South African police service operation. This is an integrated operation which account to a group of ministers as doing oversight on behalf of the president. So it cannot be correct then that one minister takes a decision without being part of the collective, or even so, the decision that is taken is an operational decision, whereas the IMC at the beginning did not participate in the formation of the team. It was the National Commission that signs off the formation of the team. The IMC were only presented with a strategy that we're going to do, which they adopted, they agree with us, and they will have received or gave their opinions if there was no need for that to continue anymore. They will have convened us and told us that the country is okay now, the murder rates have gone down that are targeted to the politicians, or therefore you might want to reconsider this operational approach that you are doing and maybe revisit the strategy, but that didn't happen. So that was our concern.
And did you receive a report back from the National Commissioner whether he's attempted to speak to the President?
No, unfortunately, I did not receive a report back. I do not know what was engagement. It is for that reason, Commissioner, that without receiving that, I personally reached out to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee as an oversight body to the police work, because I realize it looks like every door I'm knocking, nothing is happening. National Commissioner, please speak to the minister, it's not happening. National Commissioner, check with the president, I'm not getting a feedback. And the next body that I must engage is an oversight body, which is Parliament. I then contacted the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Cameron, myself. I requested him to invite me to the Portfolio Committee. Ordinarily, I was not supposed to be part of the Portfolio Committee. But through my request, he invited me to be part of the Portfolio Committee. It is that Portfolio Committee where I was able to then express my feelings about this decision in the presence of both the National Commissioner and the Minister. But even that effort failed. Nothing happened as a result. So those are all the efforts that I did.
Thank you, Ms. Silla.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to remind you, General, there's a portion in your statement where you elaborate further on these steps, and we will get back to it. And in particular, the engagement you had with the portfolio committee, because that's the first place where you were engaged by potential decision makers on the matter. All other previous efforts had been unsuccessful. But before we get there, getting back to our page 44, and I'm at paragraph 127, I'm going to invite you to read your paragraph 127 into the record. And then I point out before you do so that, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, that's conjecture on your part. It's not a fact what is in 127. So if you're going to read it, I need you to explain what informs or what leads you to form that conclusion.
Commissioner, on this paragraph, I wrote that at this stage, it had become clear to me at least that the minister issued a directive based on advice that, other than based on official records of the SAPS. It was an advice from someone that would have told the minister. So I strongly suspected that that advice the minister received was the one to disband the task team. And it is my feeling, Commissioner, that after having received these continuous briefing from the Gauteng counterintelligence operation about the work that they are doing in Gauteng and the sensitivity of the cases they are investigating and the extent of corruption that they are experiencing with these investigations, that for sure someone believed, because there were threats against the 2 detectives of Gauteng and the 10 members of the political killings task team had came to Gauteng to assist. Hence, they became part of the project. Someone thought that the political killings task team was the one that was responsible for the investigations in Gauteng towards these criminal syndicates that we had alluded to, we spoke about earlier, which involved and the participation of senior police officers in the South African Police Service, especially at the head office, as well as the senior politicians and their associate. So somebody believed that it is the political killings task team that was based on the Gauteng investigation. That was my conclusion, that whoever advised the minister advised him to close the team because they thought it is the team that is doing that investigation.
Now, and I did qualify that that is your conclusion, and in this paragraph at least, you don't substantiate that conclusion or provide a basis for that conclusion. My question to you is, do you personally have any evidence, or is there anyone within the investigative arm or involved in the investigations who would be able to adduce sufficient evidence to at least support the conclusion you have drawn? Do you know of the existence of such evidence?
Commissioners, I am aware of the evidence that was extracted as the team in Gauteng were investigating, which made me reach the conclusion that indeed this is what made someone to influence the minister to close it, because the evidence that we're going to present later by someone who's going to come before this commission who were part of this Gauteng investigation, they uncovered that communication within the syndicates was making a reference to the team, not being understanding that what is happening in Gauteng is for Gauteng, is not for KZN.
You say communication between the syndicate, but you are not implying that that communication extended to the minister, are you?
To some degree, the associates, as I refer to here on this paragraph, are associates of the minister, and the very same associate does show communication that seems to suggest that the minister is fully involved in the decision that this syndicate is taking.
Do you accept the responsibility on your part to substantiate fully, not necessarily today, but in the fullness of time, the conclusions you have drawn in that paragraph?
Yes, Commissioners, evidence is there on the record, although some of it will perhaps require to be covered in camera, but the evidence is there that will support my conclusion on this. The individuals, the colleagues, as I said earlier, my July briefing was a collective effort, men and women who are part of the investigation in Gauteng, who knows and they've gathered evidence to support the allegations that we ended up making. And they are going to come before this commission and they're going to present that evidence. We will be able, under oath, to confirm that indeed that is evidence that we've collected. And we have no reason not to believe that it is the real evidence that proves the linkages between the syndicates and the minister himself.
And do you know whether or not the dockets were duly transferred? You said on the 20th, by the 20th of May, when you lent, they had been transferred, right?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Do you know what became the fate of those dockets after they left the control of the political Killings Task Team?
Well, the political Killings Task Team members were complaining to me that they are receiving unindebted complaints from the members of the family members of the victims of crime that they were in constant contact with as they were investigating these cases in order to seek update on the work that the team is doing. And the team could not give them update on the work that has been done, and their families are not receiving any update on the work that is done. So that made me conclude that nobody is making contact with the families, there's no investigation that has been done, and really the whereabouts exactly of these dockets was also in question. So it was my conclusion that from the time they were taken until the time when they were transferred back, nothing was done in those documents in terms of the investigation of crime.
Chair.
It is 4 o'clock, but
just two questions
my co-commissioner has a question.
Okay.
And then
mine were just to wrap up this topic.
After him, you will see when it's convenient for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner, maybe you'll deal with it in your own way because you're still continuing with your questions. I just want clarity on whether the directive was implemented. That is the directive to disband the task team. Because it seems to me that where we are going now, we're dealing with the dockets and the removal of the dockets from the task team to Pretoria. But what became of the task team itself following the directive? You can deal with it in your own way.
I guess the reference is to the warm bodies.
Yes.
People from
What became of them? I think it is going to be, the answer to that question will be perhaps slightly lengthy and complicated and might perhaps take you way beyond 4 o'clock than more than you intend. So may I suggest that we flag it and we come back to it? The questions that I wanted to pose to the witness are just closing the issue of dockets. And we open with your question tomorrow morning. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. General, so just to close up on the issue of dockets, at paragraph 142, you give just a very brief summary that seems to imply that you have a good sense of the issues that were being investigated and reflected in those dockets. Am I correct in my suggestion?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, if I am correct, my question to you then is, to your knowledge, did any of the 121 dockets contain any detail regarding investigations or generally the work of the Gauteng counterintelligence, in the counterintelligence operations. Did any of those dockets refer, could be parallel to, based on the description, the explanation you gave us earlier, to any of the work of the Gauteng counterintelligence operations?
Commissioners, the directive from JRCB was talking about the deactivation of the political killings task team. The case docket of the political killings task team was situated in KwaZulu Natal, and they were not part of the Gauteng counterintelligence ops. So the GCI ops dockets were kept separately from those that were brought from KZN.
Okay.
So I don't think there was any mixture whatsoever.
Now, in last question then, and perhaps very briefly, your paragraph 141 and 142, you speak of an analysis conducted on those dockets upon their return, and you draw certain conclusions as to what happened to those dockets in the intervening period. Would like to summarize that, and that will be the last question for the day.
Commissioners, although this matter came to the public through the media briefing the National Commission had, again, thanking the media for bring this matter to the attention of the entire citizens, that when the media made an inquiry to the National Commission had already directed a week prior to that for the dockets to be taken back to KZN. And we had since convened with the acting divisional commissioner of detective service at the time, and we agreed together with Jara Kumalo of how we're going to deal with these dockets that are sitting in Pretoria before they come to KZN, be mindful of a possibility that the commission might want to have a look at those dockets. So our agreement was that we are going to have these dockets audit conducted, page by page in each docket, to confirm that which was handed over at the head office, whether it is still intact as it's coming back. As the directive of the National Commission, it was explicit that the copies of those dockets must be made and kept at the head office. So the team had to then make photocopies, scan those dockets, and sign off on each and every document that is inside the docket, and conduct inspection on the docket to see whether has there been any investigation conducted, meaning the very same team, political killing task team, that came to hand over the dockets after driving from KZN and bringing them here, they came here to come and conduct an inspection on this docket to see the status, whether there is any entry that is made on these dockets from the time they were handed over. They did find few of them, maybe a small percentage. I will not give the exact percentage now, but few of them, there were some entries that were made in those dockets. From the investigation team, from the head office, they said they were instructed to conduct inspection on the docket. As they were conducting those inspections, they had made some entries that they had confirmed, some of them, that the investigation is complete. They're supposed to be arrested, but because they're not empowered to do that, they are not investigating officers, they didn't do anything about it. They just confirmed that on paper, and they left it there on the docket. I think only one of the dockets of the Eastern Cape where a contact was made with the victims in that case, but that was just about only thing that was ever done. Contact made with the victim to tell them that you are having this case, we are investigating this case, together with the officials in the Eastern Cape who were part of the initial investigation. They were also contacted by this head office team, and the entry was made on that case docket. So this is just only one out of all of them, that at least there was a contact with the victims. The rest, there was no contact with the victims, and some of them were inspected, some of them was not even inspected. And that was the status of this team. That's why I'm saying, commissioners, that when the media asked the National Commissioner about the status of the docket, and when the National Commissioner said he has given instruction for the dockets to go to KZN, it was old story to us because we already received the instruction a week before. So we were already doing the heading over at the time when the media brought this thing to the eyes of the public. So it came out as if it's something that was done on the day, but it's something that we were already doing the counting of the dockets. And it was a Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, when the media asked the question, and the team was already in Pretoria doing the calculation of those dockets. And on Friday, they drove down to KZN with the docket. That's why we're even reflecting there that some of them, they were on an advanced stage where suspect needed to be arrested. And I can safely say that suspect has been arrested as a result of the state of readiness of those dockets. When they arrived back in KZN within a week, there were people charged.
So in short, General, except for the few entries in some of the dockets, the contents of the dockets were intact or were what they should have been.
I did not get the commission properly, the last part.
Oh, sorry. I was saying in that audit or verification exercise, during which it was established that there were some entries in a few of the dockets, the contents of the dockets were intact or were what they were supposed to be.
That is correct, Commissioner. All the dockets were as they were handed over originally to the head office. They came back as they were.
Just one other aspect. In paragraph 137 of your statement, you say that the last sentence, the meeting was led by Colonel Mkhwanazi, who advised that the dockets had been delivered to General Khumalo. And in paragraph 142, again the last sentence, you say in the period that they were under the control of General Sibiya, these arrests were not effected for reasons not known to me. The under control that they is referring to, I understand, is it not referring to dockets? By way, for example, at the time of their removal from the task team. Yes, removal from the task team. I understand that to be a reference to the dockets. Am I correct?
That is correct,
Yes.
Commissioner.
Yes. Now my question is, the dockets, according to 137, were delivered to General Khumalo, and in 142, they are under the control of General Sibiya. This could mean one of, or two, it could refer to two possibilities. One, they could still have remained with General Khumalo, but be under the control of General Sibiya, or they could have been moved physically to be under the control of General Sibiya. Can you please explain that or shed light on that?
Commissioner, in order to give clarity, you'll see when I made the last statement, when I said, before the National Commissioner conducted the interview, that myself, the acting divisional commissioner of detective services, as well as General Khumalo, had a meeting, a visual meeting, discussing on how we're going to handle the transfer of this docket or the return of these dockets back. At the time, the dockets were sitting at the office of the divisional commissioner, crime intelligence, in a storeroom of one brigadier, I forgot his name, who works under the divisional commissioner, crime detection, Lieutenant General Sentumule. It is my understanding, Commissioner, that the dockets moved from Khumalo to General Sentumule from detectives on the direction of General Sibiya. Matlo on 137, Colonel Matlo, is with the task team in KZN. So he was only communicating the whereabouts of the docket according to his knowledge. His knowledge was that he handed them over to General Khumalo. What General Khumalo did with them, as the Commissioner is correctly asking, he couldn't answer that. And General Khumalo, in my engagement with him, was that Gerald Sintumule and Gerald Khumalo, both of them, had received the instruction specific from Sibiya that him, Khumalo and Sintumule, they must transfer the dockets to each other. So meaning dockets coming from political clearance task team under Khumalo's signature must come to the detectives under Gerald Sintumule. Hence they landed at the storeroom of Sintumule. So, but both of them, they fall under Gerald Sibiya as a portfolio in the office of the National Commission. So either way, whether they are at crime intelligence under Khumalo or they are at Sintumule under at detective services, they still, both of those entities fall under Gerald Sibiya. So if we say they are under the control of Gerald Sibiya, we mean exactly that. He issued the instruction and he commanded those two entities.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair. It's 16:13. I don't think I drove us to 13, but grateful for the indulgence. As I indicated, tomorrow morning we'll ensure that before we move to the next topic, we respond to Commissioner Khumalo's question, and then we will proceed in the normal way. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us adjourn. Thank you.